Hello, welcome to the channel Y Stories. Enjoy watching.
The hospital room smelled of chlorine and white roses, which Miguel Gomez carefully placed in a tall glass vase on the bedside table by the hospital bed. His wife Marta was lying on the bed. The young woman had fallen into a coma because of an enlarged tumor in her brain, and now her life completely depended on the doctors at the prestigious hospital where 25-year-old Marta had been urgently hospitalized a few hours ago. Her husband, who had just turned 29 that day, looked at the patient with feigned sadness, strenuously playing the role of a caring husband. He gently took the girl's fingers and then prudently looked around to make sure no one would enter the room anytime soon. Miguel leaned as close as he could to his wife's ear and whispered softly, "Oh, Marta, you have no idea what a great birthday present you've given me. I couldn't even dream of that." At that moment, the door to the room creaked open and the man immediately assumed the pose of a grieving spouse, crouching over the bed and choking on fake sobs. "My darling, my precious girl. How could it be? Why? God, why?" Miguel buried his face in his sleeve, his back shuddering with imaginary grief and fake suffering. "Mr. Miguel Gomez, forgive me for interrupting you, but you have to sign some papers regarding your wife's stay at the hospital." Marta's doctor gently touched her husband's shoulder, trying to calm him down. Miguel turned around slowly. While the doctor didn't see it, he had time to rub his eyes with the edge of his sleeve, which made him look teary with natural redness in his eyes. "Doctor, tell me the truth. How is she?" the young spouse said in a pleading tone. The surgeon looked a little confused, but still answered without going into too much medical detail. "Well," he hesitated, "your wife is now in a stable but serious condition. We did everything we could to save her life. But there is no point in talking about a definite time frame for her recovery. It needs at least several weeks before we can make any conclusions about her further treatment." Miguel pretended to wipe the invisible tears from his eyes, and then he slowly said, "But, can you tell me the whole truth? There's no chance she'll come out of the coma anytime soon, right? Doctor, I need to know in advance if anything irreparable happens to my beloved spouse. Maybe I should go to a notary right now to draw up all the necessary business documents in case of her death. You know, it is not a quick and very responsible process. Who knows how much time Marta and I have left?" "Well, why are you burying her in advance, Miguel Gomez?" The doctor looked at the young man with suspicion. "I told you, it's too early for us to assume anything about it. After all, diseases like Marta's are treated in a complex way. Not in 1 month, and sometimes not even in 1 year. If we will detect even the slightest reaction to external stimuli. Well, for example, light, movement around the room. Even that could be considered a success." Miguel turned his gaze back to the girl lying on the bed. She was pale but still beautiful. Almost as beautiful as the day she and her future husband had first met. Marta seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. A dream she would never come out of. After stroking his wife's arm, Miguel got up and gently pulled the doctor with him. Slowly, so that he could get the meaning of his words right, he said, "So you're saying that the chances that my dear wife will come out of her coma and be able to function again in the next year or two are essentially nil. Right? Am I right?" Miguel looked at the surgeon seriously. The doctor hesitated. And at that moment Miguel saw on his face exactly what he wanted. Vulnerability. This vulnerability was shown by the way the corner of the doctor's mouth twitched nervously, or by the way his wiry hands trembled. The sweat that appeared on the surgeon's forehead finally convinced Miguel that he had interpreted the man's words correctly. "Well, the chances aren't zero, but yes, there's not much chance." The surgeon's eyes darted rapidly from side to side as if he were uncomfortable accepting this sad fact. Miguel decided that it was worth taking advantage of this to put pressure on the stubborn, virtuous doctor. There had long been rumors in the hospital about the chief surgeon drinking a bottle of booze at the end of the day, or playing cards with his colleagues from the emergency department to control the adrenaline in his blood. Miguel could clearly see the weakness in his character as well as his passion for money. During his time in his wife's company, the man had learned a lot about this kind of sensitive topic. All that was left to do was to find out the price. "Dr. Is it possible to make it so that, well, I don't know how to explain it. Well, can I count on your help to keep my wife in a coma?" "Not for long, a couple of months at first, and then I'll sign the papers to take her off life support." The surgeon's eyes widened instantly. Though he knew right away what he was talking about, the man was still shocked by the young man's blatant cynicism. "Mister, are you out of your kind?" the surgeon whispered. However, Gomez stopped his further questions by showing him a 5-digit figure on the display screen of his smartphone. "Is this amount okay with you, Benito Hidalgo?" Miguel asked with pressure. "If you want more, I can handle it. But then I would need a better guarantee that the woman lying in this room would definitely die before spring." The surgeon stared at Miguel in silence. The next second his Adam's apple twitched sharply and briefly, and then the doctor swallowed nervously. Well, Miguel swiped his thumb across the screen and the number instantly became 6 figures. The doctor was almost speechless with fear and delight. Nodding toward Marta, he silently asked, "What has she done to you that you would do such a monstrous thing to her?" The girl's husband only grinned wryly. "Benito Hidalgo, why on earth did your conscience suddenly wake up? Let's be specific. Do you agree or refuse? I don't have time to deal with persuasion. After all, I have practically nothing to lose." "But how do you even imagine it?" The surgeon raised his voice in turn. "Even if I agree, I can't just stop her treatment. After all, I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to save lives, not take them away." The young man mocked him. "Look, I am not asking you to kill her. I just need you to treat her a little less than usual. Well, a lot less than the way you traditionally deal with the disease in such situations. That's all. You're the doctor, you give the prescriptions. And whatever treatment you prescribe for my wife, I'll accept." Miguel put his hand on the doctor's shoulder and smiled evilly. "So, deal? Can I count on you?" Benito Hidalgo hesitated, rubbing the edge of his robe for a few seconds, but then the greed inside him finally took over. "Okay. I don't think there's any point in aggressive therapy. I will prescribe small doses of medications at first, and then we'll see. If there's no progress." The surgeon looked eloquently at Miguel, who gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder in return. "Good. I'll make the first payment for the treatment as soon as the test results are ready. You know what I want to see in them. And, Dr. Benito Hidalgo, I hope there's no need to remind you that no living soul should know about our conversation." The surgeon nodded, then hurriedly left the room, going to the other patients who also needed his attention and help. Finally, before closing the door behind him, the doctor glanced with barely concealed disdain at Gomez as he froze over his comatose wife and spoke quickly. "You know, Miguel Gomez, I am an agnostic and I do not believe in God because of my profession, but what you are doing to your wife is at least inhuman." Miguel hesitated for a moment and then answered without turning around, still standing with his back to the surgeon. "I don't pay you to talk about my humanity," said the man in an indifferent tone. "I pay you to do your job in silence and not to judge my decisions. Now go, the patients are waiting for you." "Monster," the surgeon whispered to himself, sweating with fear, and went to perform his medical duties. Neither the cunning, cruel spouse standing next to Marta nor the chief surgeon of the hospital knew that the girl had heard their entire conversation from beginning to end. Marta had come out of the coma, but she was not yet fully aware of everything that was happening and could not even understand where she was. When she heard familiar voices, she was glad at first. But the information that followed seemed so irrational and inconsistent that Marta thought that everything that happened was a long, terrible nightmare. A figment of her sickly mind. Marta longed to open her eyes, to realize that the terrible things that came to her ears were only painful dreams, nothing more. But she was still too weak to control her own body. The following attack of a severe headache finally convinced her that the horrible truth revealed to the patient in the intensive care unit was real. So, her beloved husband wanted to get rid of her. And he was going to do it with cold blood, calculating everything to the smallest detail. To bribe her doctor so that he would not treat the rich patient properly, and then he would take her off life support. It was a neat and devilishly simple plan. Most likely Miguel's hand would not have even trembled when it came time to sign the permission to take her off life support. So Marta could not believe what was happening, but it was not as hard as it might have seemed at first glance. The fact is that she had long ago begun to notice changes in her spouse. It began the moment the oncologist first told her about her disease. Miguel immediately became active and began to take an interest in the affairs of their mutual company. Although before that he preferred to deal only with his design department and not worry about anything else. At the same time, his attention to his wife's health increased dramatically. There was not a single day without them going to some high-end clinic to double-check her tests. Miguel told he didn't believe that his beloved wife could be so suddenly and severely ill, and so he wanted to know everything about Marta's condition to know if his wife was okay or not. "Don't get upset too early, honey," her husband said. "Who knows, maybe these doctors just made a mistake. The tests were mixed up or taken incorrectly. It can be personal incompetence of specialists or banal greed. You know how profitable it is for them to drag money out of people like us to the last minute." "I know, Miguel," she said at the time. "Except that it's a brain tumor, and medications costing several $1,000s can't be prescribed by doctors without a reason." Only now, lying half-conscious, unable even to move her eyelids, did Marta understand why her beloved husband suddenly needed to double-check her tests. He just wanted to make sure she had no chance. He wanted to be on the safe side in case he still had to play the role of affectionate and attentive husband for the next few years. Now everything was crystal clear. Marta heard the cell phone vibrate weakly in her husband's hand. Then she heard Miguel talking to someone who was clearly of the female gender. "Hi, sweetheart. Yes, I'm still in the hospital. No, don't worry. I'll stop by tonight. I still have to visit our family notary. Yeah, sure. I want to know how soon I can get my wife's property after her death. Well, don't get bored without me. Go to the store and get something for dinner. Let's celebrate. No, I'm pretty sure she's not going to recover. Of course, a coma. This is not a joke anymore." Marta felt herself drowning in fiery, burning rage and anger. Suddenly the girl felt a salty taste in her mouth as if she bit her cheek from the inside. With all her strength, she realized that she had unconsciously been able to move her tongue and even clench her teeth, thus causing the wound. The taste of her own blood reminded Marta that she was alive and that she should not give up under any circumstances. Meanwhile, her husband was romantically murmuring something into a telephone to his mistress. Martha did not doubt that it was his mistress. Then Miguel affectionately said goodbye to his paramour. "Okay, honey, be patient. Not much time left. A month, maybe less. Depends on how it goes. Yes, sure. I'm looking forward to it, too. Kisses." Marta suppressed her anger with a tremendous effort of will. The increased pulse rate could have caused a reaction from the devices, thereby letting everyone know that she had come out of the coma. Pretending she was still unconscious, she tried to calm down. Right now she needed to regain her strength and do what she could to regain control of her own body. "See you tomorrow, dear," Miguel said goodbye to his wife. "I'll be sure to visit you to find out that you are still as immobile and emotionless as before. That is what I want you to do. Be a good girl and don't make your dear husband nervous." Marta felt the light touch of her husband's lips on her forehead. If she hadn't been paralyzed, she would have slapped the scoundrel so hard he'd stay with a face as red as a boiled lobster. When she heard the door close behind him, she relaxed. She needed time to fully recover and come to her senses. But the trouble was, she didn't have much time left. Okay, my love. We'll see which of us wins your dirty game. The urge to survive was so strong in Marta that she literally ordered herself to calm down and try to bring all her feelings to a common denominator. It took all her self-control not to give up and pressed the nurse's emergency button with the tip of her finger, thus revealing her condition. The girl could feel the blood rushing through her veins faster and faster every second, washing her vital organs and making her limbs gradually, millimeter by millimeter, regain their sensitivity. Collecting her wool in a fist, Marta forced her body to relax, and then she drifted into a pleasant nap. She fell asleep almost instantly, despite the stress and the tremendous emotional turmoil she had experienced. Sleep mixed with memories in her mind, making the girl's past flashback with colorful pictures of her troubled childhood and adolescence. Marta spent the first 5.5 years of her life in an orphanage. The girl never knew her real parents. She was given a beautiful name at the orphanage. From the first days, Marta was known for her easygoing nature and her blonde, silky hair. Nannies at the orphanage said that someone left her near the orphanage. It was like in the movies. She was in a basket on the doorstep. All the girl managed to learn was that on the day she was found near the front door of the orphanage, there was a terrible downpour. Shortly after Marta turned 5, she was adopted by a childless family of engineers from an ordinary small town. They were good people. As Marta grew older, she often thanked God for giving her this wonderful family. Although the Gomez family had never been wealthy, they always had enough money. Andres and Catalina considered themselves middle class. They had a nice car, a 3-room apartment in a decent residential area, and a small country house. The girls' sweetest memories were always associated with the country house. Their little Marta felt some special peace and hoped that in the future she was destined for a better life. Watching her grandmother cultivate all kinds of unusual herbs in her little garden, Marta believed it was a big enchanted garden. And her beloved grandmother was a real sorceress who had been assigned to guard the garden and make sure that none of the nosy neighbors got into it. Grandma Elena could only admire the girl's vivid imagination. The elderly woman at first had a hard time accepting the fact that her daughter and her husband could not have biological children. But as a wise woman with extensive life experience, she did not try to stop them from adopting a child from the orphanage. When little Marta was brought to meet her grandmother for the first time, Elena only gave a wave of her hands. She looked so much like her daughter. They quickly found a common language with little Marta. And now the girl was happily telling all the kids that she had her real grandmother. She also had a magical garden. Children mostly laughed at the little girl. They were well aware that the Gomez family had no enchanted garden at all. However, Marta did not stop believing in the illusion created by her imagination. And her parents were in no hurry to shatter it. Let her believe, Andres repeatedly told his wife when she was worried that their little daughter was thinking too outside the box. When she goes to school, she will understand that there is so little magic in this world that every manifestation of it is equal to a real miracle. But the neighbors and a lot of kids will laugh at our daughter. Catalina could not calm down. I certainly understand. She is very happy to finally be with her real family and has loving parents and grandmother. But I'm afraid that this joy might inadvertently go beyond the boundaries. What if her imagination is so vivid for a reason? What if this is a sign of some mental illness? I love our daughter very much, but I'm worried about her health and future. We don't know who her parents were. Maybe we should take Marta to a doctor. At this time, her father lit a cigarette and looked at his wife with a frown. Don't talk nonsense, Catalina. The girl is just a little girl, and she wants to believe in magic and miracles. After all, she came from an orphanage to a real home, to real and loving parents. Well, how would you behave if you were in her shoes if you were in a similar situation when you were 6 years old? Catalina thought about it and then nodded. I guess you're right. I've been too worried because of all the fuss and the children's gossip. We shouldn't worry about it now. It's just that I was more reasonable and practical when I was her age. And I didn't believe in miracles and in Santa Claus. The man smiled in response and stroked her head affectionately. You'll see, Catalina, our Marta will impress everyone at school. Do you know what they say about children with rich imaginations? That they tend to have the most outstanding abilities compared to ordinary children. I have a feeling this girl will follow in our footsteps. We'll be proud of her. Catalina had no choice but to agree with her husband. In general, Marta's childhood in her foster family was happy and peaceful. A year later, the girl went to first grade. And then it turned out her father was right. She was doing extremely well in school, and her interest in math only strengthened her parents' confidence that they had made the right choice in adopting Marta. The girl finished school with excellent grades. The final examinations were also easy for her, so she easily enrolled in the mathematics faculty of a prestigious university in the capital city. Parents were a little worried about letting their daughter go alone to the metropolis. But Marta assured them that she would be fine and that she had no intention of doing anything stupid there. I'm going there to study, not to party, Marta laughed. Mom, Dad, why are you so sad? It's like I'm going to Africa to study. Instead, you should be happy that I've had so much luck. I never thought I could enter one of the top universities. We are very happy for you, sweetheart, Catalina said sympathetically. But I'm still very worried. After all, we are letting you go on your own voyage. Try to understand us, you never know what can happen to you in the big city. Do you know how many scary stories there are on the internet about young provincial girls in the big city? Darling, come on. Stop scaring the girl, her husband scolded her. She's not an idiot. She knows perfectly well where she can and cannot go in the capital. That's right. Listen to what Daddy says, Mom, Marta nodded toward her father. I promise my travel plans will only include exhibitions and museums. And only if I have time for them. Something tells me that I won't have time to go for walks. The faculty I chose is not the one where students dance from dawn till dusk and look for wealthy guys. Mother calmed down a little, but still asked, Okay, but still, call us every week. Okay? I can't even imagine how we will live here alone, without you. Mommy, dear, but you're not alone, Marta hugged her tenderly by the shoulders. Daddy will always be with you. He won't let you get bored. Right, Dad? Of course, he said. Catalina, don't cry. Marta has to pack. Her suitcase is already open for packing, and you are still crying. Marta looked at her parents warmly. She had long considered them real family, not just foster parents. Thanking fate for the family she had found, Marta began to pack and soon went to the capital city by train. On the way, she looked out the window at the scenery of the forests and tiny towns her train passed. At that moment, Marta promised herself she would succeed in the big city and never have to leave for one of those remote towns. My parents will be proud of me, she promised herself. When Marta arrived in the city and settled in the dormitory, she immersed herself in her studies, which, as she expected, took almost all of her time. The few hours she had left were spent preparing for tests, or simply reading something for fun, trying to distract her from the constant calculations, tables, and diagrams whirling around in her blonde head. From day one, her professors could not help but notice Marta's outstanding intellectual abilities, which slowly but surely led her down the path of significant success in research. The student project supervisors repeatedly listed Marta as one of the best students, not only in her class, but among all students at the university. Such honors gave Marta a good advantage in obtaining additional points in the exams, as well as the opportunity to present the results of her student research at various academic conferences. As a result, the girl graduated from a prestigious university with excellent recommendations. This gave her a certain confidence that all her actions were right. And consequently, the next step in her career was to get an internship and then a permanent job at a big engineering technical company in the capital. This was when Marta first encountered the difficulties that newcomers to the harsh business world of the capital often ignore. Even with a diploma and brilliant results of her student work, Marta still could not get a job in her dream company. It was a long and arduous journey before her dreams of developing her career could finally become a reality. Marta, with all her credentials but without any professional experience, could only count on an internship, but not on a full-time position at the company, no matter how much she assured her employers of the quality of her work and rigorous work discipline. No one dared to hire an inexperienced newcomer to the team. Come back in a couple of years, when you gain enough experience, and you will have something to offer us, not only in your resume but also in your portfolio, she was told each time. After that, the young professional and former student would leave the office in tears. Her parents constantly insisted that she return to her hometown. They had the right connections here, and in general, she would be a highly valued professional in any company with her diploma. Her father worried all the time, saying, "How are you going to get a good job in the capital? The nicest jobs are taken through connections. You should go back home." But Marta stood her ground. "I can't give up on my dream, Dad," she told Andres during the weekly phone conversation. "If I came back now, I'd be breaking my most important promise. And I made it to myself years ago for a reason." Her mother and father only sighed. They did not understand their daughter's desire to conquer the capital. However, no matter how parents felt about their daughter's quirks, they still respected her decision to stay in the metropolis. Meanwhile, she had to pay for the rented room. Marta had moved out of the dormitory only a couple of months ago, right after she graduated. Marta had almost run out of the money she had been saving from her scholarship. And she didn't want to ask her parents for help because they had a hard time. She was ashamed to admit it, but the money Marta had left was barely enough to pay for rent for the next month. She needed a job immediately. So she curbed her professional appetite and tried to find a job where her lack of experience in such a complicated field as engineering would not impede making money. After several weeks of ineffective searching and interviewing, the young girl finally succeeded. A small company producing specialized equipment for construction invited her for an internship with the possibility of further employment if the director is satisfied with the results of her work. Marta gladly accepted. This job allowed her not only to pay for her apartment and food, but also to save some money each month. She sent part of the money to her parents so they wouldn't have to worry about their daughter and could feel more secure financially. Gradually, Marta was promoted to the position of senior sales manager. Her education helped her develop the ability to negotiate brilliantly, and her mastery of professional terminology increased her credibility with the company's business partners. After working in that position for 2 years, she was able to promote their small company to the regional level. Orders began to come in from all over the country. And that's when Marta got a surprise. The director was about to retire. The age was appropriate, and the company should have been bought by large business sharks, interested in the sudden success of such a tiny company by the standards of the capital. However, the director did not want to give the company away for nothing. Instead, he made Marta CEO, entrusting her with the company's entire stake. The girl was completely shocked by this sudden turn of events. "Gonzalo, I don't understand." Marta couldn't accept what had happened. "Do you want to hand over the whole company along with me as the CEO? Why? After all, this company is like a child to you, isn't it?" "Calm down, Marta," the director answered firmly. "I have already done all the paperwork. You just need to sign it. At the same time, I will be confident that the company is in good hands and that these piranhas will not tear it as soon as we merge with them in the final deal." "Then let's not merge," the girl persisted. "They can't force us. It's our right to join their conglomerate or not." Gonzalo Ima frowned his thick, gray eyebrows. "We can't miss such a deal, Marta. It took us too long to start cooperating with such a powerful industrial giant. We need their money. Otherwise, we'll just keep on doing small jobs until we're completely forgotten. And a merger with another company is a real jumpstart for us and a steady stream of regular orders from the world's largest companies. God didn't give me children. But Marta, you were able to do something impossible with my company, and I want you to be the one to continue to run it. It's better for everyone, believe me." And don't argue with me. I'm too old to explain my decisions over and over again. Try to accept it as a fait accompli. Marta looked at Gonzalo with wide-open green-blue eyes. All right, Gonzalo. As you wish. But I want you to know that running this company is a great honor for me. I won't let you down, I swear. The man in the director's chair nodded contentedly and wrote something in his leather diary. Great. I'll need the annual report for the previous operation period of the company. I need to check some figures before I can completely entrust the management to you. A few days later, Marta became CEO of the company. And then a merger and acquisition deal took place. Negotiations were conducted at the highest level, and Marta succeeded in getting the most favorable terms from the new business partners. Marta's company was able to maintain its individual status by becoming the official contractor of its higher-ranking colleagues. As Gonzalo had predicted, by separating into a separate sector within another company, they were able to do their usual work while gaining access to the parent company's assets. At a rapid pace, Marta transformed from a sweet and slightly naive intern into a successful young businesswoman who clearly understood the system of managing top professionals and at the same time knew the value of money. No deal or potentially profitable contract passed her by. She preferred to personally control all processes in the company. This approach led Marta to quickly reach the level of her senior partners and earn not only their respect but also participation in key international contracts. However, deep in her heart, Marta was still a romantic and radiant person, longing for miracles and the fulfillment of her heart's desires. That's why when Miguel entered her life in a deafening wave of passion, Marta lost all vigilance, hoping to believe in a miracle and get what she had secretly dreamed of for a long time, her own family. They had met at an international business and trade forum where Marta was presenting their products to foreign colleagues and customers. Miguel casually ran into Marta and immediately won her heart with his unconventional appearance and breathtaking charisma. The tall, muscular, handsome man with his mop of black hair, but with pale skin and incredibly deep blue eyes, reminded Marta of the prince from fairy tales who had captured her dreams more than once when she was a child. The young people immediately found a common language and topic of conversation. It turned out that Chavez works as a chief designer in one of the architectural offices of the city. However, for a long time, Chavez has been dreaming of working for their company since there are better prospects for him there. "Oh, I'm lucky to have met you," Marta said with a laugh. "We are looking for a new head of the design department at the company." As soon as she said this and mentioned her position at the company, Miguel's eyes lit up with a witch's fire. In reality, it was a flame of greed and avarice. But Marta didn't think about that at all. The young man immediately asked to be interviewed for the position of chief designer and at the same time to walk the girl home that night. Although Marta was wealthy enough by then to afford a good car, she didn't want to burden herself with the problems common to car enthusiasts. So she preferred to take a business-class cab. When she agreed to Miguel's proposal and got into his car, she had no idea what the consequences would be. The young, handsome designer first invited the businesswoman to his place for a cup of coffee, and Marta ended up spending the night in Miguel's apartment, unable to resist the charms of this tall and confident handsome man. A turbulent romance unfolded between them with incredible passion, reminiscent of a real typhoon. They were in a constant state of tension, unable to resist their burning feelings. Weekend flights to Nice and Milan, vacations in Hawaii, and Sunday operas in Paris, it all seemed like a fairy tale to Marta. But the girl didn't know at the time that all of this pleasure was paid for by the numerous loans that her lover planned to pay when he reached his final goal, marriage to the wealthy owner of a construction company. Anyway, the proposal to become his wife, made to the sound of the Metropolitan Opera musical in New York, was accepted without a moment's hesitation. Her happiness was too great to think about the haste of such a step. The magic of the moment made Marta too vulnerable to doubt the sincerity of her passionate lover's feelings. She was not surprised even by the strange request that Miguel made almost as soon as she said yes. "Marta, I may seem silly and old-fashioned, but let me ask you one tiny favor." "Anything, my love," the girl replied. May I take your last name when we are married, my darling? Marta looked at him in wonderment. But I like your last name so much, Chavez. I thought I was going to take your last name and be Marta Chavez. Doesn't that sound good? Miguel's blue eyes flashed with irritation for a moment. But he quickly suppressed the feeling that was so inappropriate at the moment. Everything had to be perfect. She had to believe him wholeheartedly. Of course, he replied with a grinning wry smile. But then you'd have to go through so much trouble while changing your papers, and the company wouldn't want to spend so much time on the paperwork either. Let's keep it as it is. I'll take your last name and you won't have to change anything. Marta felt a warm wave of tenderness flood her heart. Honey, do you really want to do this for me? She was naively delighted. What a sweet thing. I never would have thought that you were so caring. It proves once again that I have chosen the best man in the world to be my husband. I will do everything for you, my love, Miguel said quietly, and then squeezed Marta in his arms and gave her a long and passionate kiss that made her dizzy. The young couple got married a month later. At the time, many people behind the CEO's back gossiped that she had married too quickly and rashly. However, Marta didn't care about office gossip. Miguel immediately became the head of the design department at his wife's company, and he seemed happy, surrounding his beloved with care and love. Only now, on the verge of death, did Marta realize that the blue-eyed scoundrel had taken her last name for a reason. The paperwork would be much less hassle when the company was taken over by him as the direct heir of his sick wife. Marta recalled a moment from a wedding, the magnificence and solemnity of which had astonished the girl's friends. The bride and groom were dressed in couture outfits and jewelry and looked as if they were real celebrities. The ceremony itself took place on an insanely expensive snow-white yacht that the couple had rented for the whole night. The bride's parents stood out among the other guests. Modest retired engineers. They were very happy that their daughter had finally found happiness. However, it was clear from their faces, this is not the kind of husband the mother and father wanted for their independent, successful Marta. Andres, Marta's father, took the girl aside and asked her quietly, Marta, sweetheart, are you sure that the man you called your husband this morning is worthy of you? Of course, Dad. What's wrong with that? Marta looked at her father with suspicion. Miguel and I love each other, and it will last forever, I'm sure. Why do you even ask me such a question? Her father looked at her husband with a strange expression in his eyes. I'll tell you the truth, dear, I don't like him. Why? Marta was confused. Andres hesitated and then answered, he's not sincere, he's so fake. He looks like a vampire. Blue eyes, pale skin. Don't let him drink blood out of you. Marta snatched her hand from her father's firm grip. What are you talking about, Dad? Miguel is the closest person to me after you and Mom. I won't let anyone say mean things about him, do you hear me? Anyone. Not even you. Dad just raised his eyebrows in surprise. No one said anything like that. Just be careful with him. Trust my engineering instincts. He's not as simple as you might think. Marta and her family almost fought that night. The parents refused to accept their daughter's husband, but tried to contain their emotions so as not to completely ruin the day. Now the girl was cursing herself again for refusing to listen to the words of her dearest people. Whatever needs to happen will happen. Marta thought tiredly while trying to cope with the wave of hatred growing in her heart toward her husband. Marta and Miguel had lived together for only 2 years before she was diagnosed with a tumor. It started quite innocuously. Marta began to suffer from dizziness more and more often, and at first, she thought it was just a migraine. But the attacks became more and more severe, and the headaches became more and more acute. When the owner of a construction company fainted several times during important meetings, her husband decided that they should see a doctor. But as soon as the girl was diagnosed, his behavior suddenly changed. It seemed that he began to prepare in advance for his wife's death. Although he was demonstrating care, at the same time he was examining the company papers and the general stock package, which, as before, belonged exclusively to his wife. Now that the whole truth was revealed to Marta with terrifyingly crystal clarity, the young business lady finally realized. All this time her beloved husband had been secretly preparing a plan B, by which he could easily and in the shortest possible time take control of her company. Marta was given only the beautiful role of martyr in this diabolical spectacle, a curtain to cover all the atrocities of her beloved husband. Honoring the memory of his deceased wife, whom he was going to kill himself, Miguel, along with his mistress, will take all the reins of the company and have access to all of Marta's money. The worst part of the story was that Marta had sincerely loved her husband all the time and could never have imagined that he would be capable of such a disgusting act. The fairy tale was shattered, and all that was left of her illusory castle of hopes was gray ashes and disappointment. When Marta regained consciousness, she managed to open her eyes wide enough to look around. Unfortunately, the girl's body had not yet fully regained sensitivity. So Marta could not even get up in bed. At that moment, the nurse on duty, Angelica, unexpectedly entered the room and, seeing that the patient had already been able to open her eyes and therefore had regained consciousness, sincerely wanted to rejoice at her progress. "Wow! You have regained consciousness. That is so wonderful." The young girl, with a slight movement of her hand, removed the black bangs that fell on her pretty, slightly oriental face. "I am so happy for you, Marta Gomez. I'll go and tell the doctor about your progress right away. I'm sure your husband will rush here with a bouquet of scarlet roses, like a prince, as soon as he finds out." Angelica had a childlike sincerity that all her patients loved. Marta was glad she was the first person to come into the room and see her awake. However, when Marta heard about her husband and the doctor, the girl shook her head negatively. "No, don't tell them anything, please." "What?" She did not understand and leaned closer to the patient. "Don't tell my husband that I've come to my senses. And don't tell the doctor either. They are in cahoots." Angelica looked at Marta in confusion, but then, after looking around to make sure no one was around, she closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed to listen to her story. Marta told her what had happened to her, stuttering all the time because her breathing had not yet fully recovered. When Marta finished her story, Angelica thought for a moment and then suddenly suggested, "Look, Marta Gomez, it's against the rules, but I feel so sorry for you that I want to help you. I have relatives in the village, my grandmother Gabriela. She's a witch doctor. She's been curing people all her life. Maybe she can help you in some way. I'll tell her you're coming. But we have to act quickly. Today. Dr. Benito Hidalgo is away playing cards, so no one will check on you. But tomorrow morning he will come to take some tests, and then the truth about your condition will be known, both to your doctor and to your husband." "I'm ready to do anything," the girl said with difficulty. "Just to get out of here alive." The nurse nodded, and then quickly wrote the address in a remote village. She also wrote there the number of the bus that would take her there. "This village is so old that no one will look for you there," Angelica assured her. "Grandmother helped a lot of people. If you trust her, she'll help you get well, too." Marta only nodded silently and looked gratefully at the young nurse. She carefully hid the address in the pocket of her shirt and then prepared all the patient's clothes for her escape. A short time later, Angelica entered the room with a small syringe containing some medicine. "I'm going to give you an injection with a special medicine. It will help you to wake up and get sensitivity in your limbs back quickly. When you're ready, don't hesitate for a minute. You must escape just before dawn. At this time, the guard usually goes to sleep for a couple of hours before the hospital opens. I'll help you and give you the money for the ticket. I already called my grandmother. Tell her that I sent you, and she'll understand right away." As soon as the medicine got into her bloodstream, Marta immediately felt a powerful energy impulse, forcing her body to relearn basic motor functions, as if on the command "get up." After a couple of hours, when she felt strong enough, she tried to get out of bed. And, miraculously, she succeeded. It was the middle of the night, and Marta had a little more time to get up and walk around the room. Fortunately, her husband had not spared money for her for an individual single room. After that, the girl snuck quietly into the hallway and gave Angelica, who was on duty that night, a sign. As the girls made their way out of the hospital through the emergency exit, Angelica embraced Marta before she had to go alone to the remote village in the north. "Good luck," the nurse wished her from the bottom of her heart. "I hope you can recover and start a new life." "Thank you," Marta thanked her with tears in her eyes. "Angelica, I will never forget you. I will tell your grandmother what a wonderful and brave granddaughter she has." "God willing, we'll see each other again," the nurse told her, and then Marta left. The next morning, Angelica told Benito Hidalgo that the patient was still in a coma, thus delaying the fateful moment when the surgeon would inevitably enter the room and find that Marta was not there. The doctor believed the nurse, and he was sure that the woman in a coma was not going anywhere, so he went to see other patients. Half an hour later, Benito returned to Marta's room. He needed to check her condition and prescribe the tests. He was shocked when, instead of the pale, blonde beauty chained to the hospital bed, he found nothing but emptiness. "Angelica, come here, now," the surgeon shouted to the nurse, clutching his head. Angelica endured all the shouting and insults of the doctor. However, all the time she just said she fell asleep, it was her fault, but she did not see how the patient could escape from the room, moreover, in such a poor condition. Cursing to himself, Benito Hidalgo dialed Miguel and briefly told him the bad news. Marta's husband did not expect anything like this, so he was shocked. An hour later, furious with the situation, Miguel broke into the clinic, and the first thing he did was attack the surgeon. Grabbing him by the shoulders, the man began to shake the doctor violently, risking tearing the flap from his snow-white robe. "Bastard! Who told me she wouldn't get better? Who swore to me that she wouldn't recover? Answer me, bastard, where's my wife?" The confused surgeon did not want to lose his earned money, so he decided to be sly. "Calm down, Miguel Gomez. It's force majeure. No one knows how your wife managed to escape from the hospital. But she won't get far. Believe me, believe my medical experience." "What do you mean?" Miguel growled menacingly, not letting the surgeon out of his death grip. "I mean her diagnosis and her condition. You can start preparing the documents for the inheritance. She's got a month left or even less. Even the fact that she escaped, it still won't save her without proper medication." Benito Hidalgo grinned wickedly and spread his hands to his sides as if to apologize. Miguel let go of the doctor's collar, and he was finally able to breathe normally. "I hope so." A furious Gomez warned him. "If it turns out that my dear wife is alive, you'll pay me back everything you earned, plus interest. Do you understand?" The surgeon nodded quickly. Only then did Marta's husband leave the hospital. In the meantime, the girl somehow made it to the bus station and got on the bus. Her hands and feet were shaking, and a headache was exploding in her head like a million firecrackers. When the driver dropped Marta off at the right stop, she thought she couldn't take it anymore, would fall right there in the grass, and fall asleep forever. Marta gathered the rest of her strength and made her way to the witch doctor's house, and then sat down in front of the door. She didn't even have the strength to knock at the door. However, it was as if someone had been waiting for her. The door swung open, and a tall and robust woman in her 70s appeared on the threshold. Her snow-white hair was neatly tucked under a dark kerchief. Her stern face showed nothing but calmness and understanding. "Well, you made it after all. I thought I would have to go into the woods to find you." The old woman dragged the girl into the house and laid her on the wide single bed with fresh white linens. Gabriela moved her hands over Marta's head as she lay unconscious and drew a sad conclusion. "Oh, I'm going to have a hard time with you. Angelica told me everything about you and your husband, about that demon. He drank so much blood from you, the beast. But he'll pay the price for everything he did. God sees everything. We'll get through this, girl. Just be strong and patient. Marta was just beginning to come to her senses, and all she could say was, "Don't give me to him. I beg you." Angelica said you could help. "I can help," she nodded. "But my help will be useless if you do not believe in yourself and your healing, and in finding God in your heart." "I can do it," Marta whispered, and fell back into oblivion. From that day on, Gabriella and Marta began their hard work. The old woman prepared various potions for the girl every day, which she had to take strictly according to the hour. In addition, the old woman used ancient incantations, which she whispered in Marta's ear. Marta had to read prayers and fast all the time. At first, Marta found most of what Gabriella did strange, but after a while Marta willingly began to fast and then to say the sacred prayers to all the saints she knew. "That's why you got sick, because your husband was a natural vampire," the old witch doctor told the girl. "He drank all your strength and your youth. And he was watching you, like a spider, when you would give up. He hoped for an accident. You could be hit by a car or fall off a cliff somewhere. The rascal waited for the disease to take control of you. It's so strong that regular medication can't help you." "Did he really wait for it?" Marta asked, impressed by the old woman's knowledge. "Well, not consciously, but his black soul followed you." Marta was horrified by what she had heard. But for some reason, she believed Gabriella. She thought of her father, who at first glance had identified her future husband as a vampire. He must have sensed something, too, but she was stupid and hadn't listened to him. She even yelled in annoyance. So, after nearly 9 months and 23 days, Marta not only defeated death, but finally got rid of her serious disease. This was also proven by the MRI scans of her brain, which the girl had taken at another municipal hospital. Now her body was completely cleared of the disease. And Marta could live a normal life. She liked living in the countryside. She stayed at Gabriella's house. Gabriella kindly offered her a small room in the back of her house. She began to help the old woman with her household chores and work in the vegetable garden, and at the same time, she learned all the wisdom of spiritual life at the old local church, where Marta went almost every day. She sincerely believed that not only the herbs of the witch doctor had helped her to recover, but also a kind of divine providence, and she wanted to learn as much as she could about it. Soon Marta asked the local priest for permission to help with the services, and he didn't mind. "Why not, if the person came to us with pure thoughts," he answered kindly. So Marta became involved in the church as well, helping to clean up the candle burnings at the altar at the end of the day or tidying up the main hall. Sometimes she helped the sisters cook in their kitchen so that they could feed not only the church staff, but also those in need who came to them for help sometimes. Marta was returning home from church one day and witnessed an unpleasant scene. A little boy of about 3 or 4 was trying to run away from a skinny drunken woman who was chasing him, holding a huge, frightening-looking rolling pin. "Come here, you little shit. Why did you break my vodka? You're in trouble now." The woman tried to shout with a tongue slurred. The boy ran as fast as he could, but at one point he could not stand on his feet and collapsed into the yellowed grass, and immediately cried loudly. "Stop it! What on earth are you doing?" Marta said indignantly, shielding the baby from his drunken mother. "He is your son, your child. How do you have the nerve to hit him?" The woman froze for a moment, staring at the long skirt and the modest, light-colored kerchief that covered Marta's head. "Are you one of those?" "Well, a nun?" she said. "And if not, what then?" Marta asked her again, not wanting to lie. By this time she took the baby in her arms and looked bravely at the drunken woman. The frightened baby was clutching tightly to the skinny neck of the girl. The next second the boy's mother's eyes flashed first understanding and then anger and resentment. "If you're not one of them, you shouldn't take someone else's child in your arms. Where did you come from, anyway? I haven't seen you here before." "She's with me, Ines. Don't touch her." Gabriella appeared abruptly and unexpectedly in this small female company, as if out of nowhere. She looked sternly at the skinny woman, then said reproachfully, "You're drunk again, Ines. Does your husband know what you're doing here while he works his butt off to provide for you? You have no idea how hard it is to work in the north." The dark green eyes of the witch doctor looked sternly at the baby's drunken mother, as if appealing to her maternal nature and conscience. "Why did he break my bottle?" She tried to change the subject. "And this weird girl came out of nowhere and started telling me how to live my life." She pointed her finger at Marta. "You should have your own baby first and then teach others how to live." "No, I'm not going to give the baby to that woman," Marta said firmly to Gabriella. "When his father comes back, then we'll see." "Hey, this is ridiculous." Ines shrieked and tried to take the boy out of the girl's arms. But the girl easily pushed her away from the baby. "I'll go to the police and file a report. They'll arrest you quickly. Damned witches." Ines yelled a little more and then walked somewhere in the direction of the post office. The police station was in the same direction. "I wonder what you intend to do with the baby?" the old woman asked with a sly squint. "I don't have the proper conditions for a baby. You have to take care of him yourself. Do you even know how?" "I'll learn," Marta answered, and then began to sing a song to the boy to calm him down. "Learn? Well, learn, and I'll check," she muttered and followed the girl with a wry chuckle. As she promised, Marta left baby Enrique to live with her until his father returned home from the harsh north, where he went to work every few months. Ramon had no idea that his wife was drinking herself to death while he was away and taking other men home. When he learned what had happened, he immediately went to Gabriella's house to pick up the baby and thank Marta for taking care of his son. The tall, strong man immediately liked the young blonde girl with the mysterious past. However, the old witch doctor warned him that the girl was married, and if he had serious intentions for her, he should wait until she divorced her vampire. The man divorced Ines almost immediately, depriving her of her parental rights. No matter how hysterical Ines was in court, no matter how much she threatened to put a curse on those damned witches, referring to Gabriella and Marta, the court ruled that full custody of the boy would be given to his father, declaring that her lifestyle was immoral. After that, Ramon became friends with Marta and soon offered to start dating officially without worrying about the gossipy neighbors. The girl would be glad, but she still had one problem in the city that she had to solve sooner or later. Unfortunately, until she did, she could not think of any new relationship. "I know you are married," Ramon answered. "What's stopping you from divorcing that monster?" "I'll wait for you. I can wait for you forever. And so is Enrique. You'll be a great mother to him. You're closer to him than his biological mother. She has been ruining our lives for too long." He clenched his fist thinking about his ex-wife. "It's a good thing she has no right even to approach him now." "Ramon, I really want to be with you and Enrique, I swear," the girl crossed herself 3 times. "Except that it's not as simple as you say. If I could just come to my husband, I would have filed for divorce long ago, but there's a different story." The man nodded understandingly and assured the girl that he would wait for her and that he believed they would be together, no matter what. "Marta, if necessary, I can go to your husband and talk to him tough. I'll do it quietly so that no one will find out anything," the man joked, smiling. Marta politely refused. But she was pleased that Ramon was ready to leave everything and protect her. He did not have that fatal passion that her ex-husband had, but Ramon won her in another way. He was reliable and kind, and some warm light wave covered Marta whenever she looked at Ramon. Miguel lived in the capital, had been an official widower for more than a year, and was wasting his late wife's money. As Marta expected, the inheritance process and the transfer of the company to him took a very short time. After that, Mr. Gomez became the sole owner of Marta's company. The only problem was that Miguel was a designer by profession, not a manager. Soon his ex-wife's company began to suffer huge losses. However, Miguel tried not to worry about it, shifting most of his responsibilities to his deputies. Meanwhile, he was having fun with his mistress Adela and enjoyed wasting the money Marta had once earned with so much effort. Marta lived quietly in the village and rejoiced to have God, Enrique, and Ramon, and some new meaning in her life. The only thing that upset her was their old church, which should have been renovated a long time ago. But there was never enough money for that. For the first time since Marta escaped, she wondered how her company was doing and what was happening to the accounts she had long ago transferred money to every month. The chance to find out the truth came very soon. Ramon had just left on another business trip and left Enrique with Marta again. Now he already called her mom in public without any embarrassment. On the same day, the girl and the baby went to the post office together. Marta stood in line for her parcel. She had ordered new candles for the church, bought with money from the parishioners. Suddenly, among the free magazines, she found a colorful society magazine. The front page had the stunning news that multimillionaire Miguel Gomez was getting married to his fiancée, Adela, this weekend. Marta felt terrible about it. There was a picture of Miguel and his fiancée, his mistress. They looked very happy. Could it be otherwise? After all, they live on her money. This moment was decisive for Marta, and she accepted the consequences of her difficult choice and went to the city, taking Enrique with her. The girl wanted to look into the eyes of the one who had so cruelly betrayed her and almost completely destroyed her faith in goodness. Wearing the cassock she usually wore to church, Marta headed to her ex-husband's wedding. The wedding was in a lavish, expensive restaurant with only VIPs and members of the media industry as guests. Everyone was dancing and having fun there. Marta introduced herself as a church representative and said that Miguel Gomez had asked her to come to arrange a subsequent church ceremony with the bride. The boy was her son. Unfortunately, no one could babysit him that day. The security guard reluctantly let the girl in. She sat Enrique down at a table with sweets and quietly snuck up to the DJ, where she asked him for a microphone for a few minutes. "I want to congratulate the newlyweds," Marta smiled sweetly. The DJ was surprised but gave the microphone to the beautiful nun. The young man was curious to know what kind of greeting it would be. Marta took the microphone and turned to her ex-husband and his fiancée. "Well, Miguel, are you having a good life with money that doesn't belong to you? I see you've chosen a beautiful bride. She is the girl with whom you were talking on the phone in the hospital while your wife was dying, chained to the bed." Miguel and Adela stared at Marta in horror. The girl told the story of the betrayal of her husband and his mistress in vivid detail. The guests stood in silence and were completely confused. No one knew whether the church servant was telling the truth or whether she was just talking nonsense and was insane. Only one thing was clear: the wedding was irrevocably ruined. "Marta," Miguel exclaimed with horror. And then everyone realized that what the nun had said was true. Miguel was fired from the company a few days later. He was completely cut off from his ex-wife's money and the company's assets. The ashamed man had no choice but to leave the country with his mistress, taking with him the small amount of money he had already withdrawn from the accounts. Marta was finally able to get her true identity back, and the first thing she did was get a divorce from her hated ex-husband. The woman didn't want to hear from him ever again. Withdrawing all her money, Marta used it to build a new church in the village. She, the sisters, and monks from the neighboring monastery transformed the old church into a shelter for the sick and homeless. There they could always get first aid, lunch, and temporary shelter. Next to the new church, Marta built a special hospital for those who, like her, had lost faith in healing. Here they practiced the methods of ancient homeopathy, combined with the latest medical developments and spiritual practices. It helped people regain faith in themselves and their power, thereby activating their body's hidden reserves. Soon word of Marta's progressive therapies spread far beyond neighboring towns and villages, attracting suffering souls from all over the country. Now Marta and Ramon can live together in peace. The couple is planning their wedding, and Marta is expecting a baby with the man she loves, while also being a wonderful mother to Enrique. Marta's parents finally came to visit them and blessed their daughter's decision. and recently Grandma Gabriella visited the newlyweds. She looked at the future mother's belly, smiling, and declared, "Girl, I can see that your happiness is very close. You are going to have twins." Marta smiled in return. "If God wills, we will have twins. Actually, Ramon and I want a boy and a girl." "Well, you will be rewarded according to your faith," she quoted a line from the Bible. Now the couple was waiting with interest to see whether Gabriella's predictions would come true. Although the gender of their children is not important to them, she and Ramon will love everyone.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe.